How's it going, everyone? I am super excited to bring Gene Inger back to the show to talk to us about his top stock picks for 2026. And he is a regular contributor on the show. He's been in the market for decades and brings a wealth of experience. Gene, welcome back. How you doing?
Well, thanks for the kind introduction. Happy New Year, Majid, and Happy New Year, everybody out there. I appreciate it. I'm on my first cup of coffee, so forgive me if I'm not as on point or as verbose as I often am, although many of you will say, thankfully. And at the same time, let me say I don't think I would have dozens of picks of stocks for the year, because I think most of the stocks that I like this year are continuation patterns. And they may be erratic, but basically the best buy points will have proven to be behind us. That always makes things more challenging in a sense going forward, not if you're an existing holder from a low level and you actually sometimes want to see dips so you can add to position. But if you're a new investor in a particular stock, you sort of, what do? You even if it has a dip, you're still paying up for it. And sometimes you go on the chat boards and you see people saying, well, I'm going to buy this stock that was 5 and it went to 10 and now it's 8 and I'm going to buy it when it's 3. Well, who says it's ever going to be 3? And if a company, any company is growing and even reasonably delivering on what their executives projected, then you're not going to get that. You shouldn't get that opportunity. And if it goes back down to the stock these guys talk about to 3 or 4, perhaps it's not a buy. Perhaps they're about to go broke or something. I mean, why would if a company is delivering at all, and why would you want it if they're not delivering and it goes down that much? Now, one exception to that, and this is a broad understanding as we go this year. Right now, you just had a one-day police action, not a war, with Venezuela. Okay, so it's probably a non-entity for the market as we get into Monday morning. This interview is on the 4th of January on a Sunday, and we really don't know how the oil market or the stock market is going to react to the Maduro arrest. And the controversy that is there, although the Venezuelans here in Florida, where I am, are generally elated and celebrating the prospect of freedom coming back to their country. So there's that. But the point being, things can go different. For example, what if Maduro has a cellmate soon who is the Ayatollah from Iran? That I'm exaggerating for effect, but certainly their eyes are open, and that Trump has said regarding the leaders of Iran, we know where you are, and there have been a couple of the radical Islamics there that the majority of the population probably doesn't like in Iran, and there's been a couple of them that were not safe in their own beds in their condos and got blown up by explosives that arrived mysteriously. And nobody, neither Israel nor opposition elements in Iran, has ever claimed credit for that. And some wonder whether that's going to occur in Moscow. I mean, there's so many variables. Putin is saying Ukraine tried to attack his house, so now he's has a legitimacy to go after Zelensky. Zelensky says he didn't do it. They didn't send 90 drones. And if they sent 90 drones, which is what the Kremlin said, to attack Putin's residence, I would suspect that maybe 1 or 2 would have gotten through. None got through. No wreckage, no shoot downs, no video. Are you going to tell me that Putin doesn't have security cameras at every inch of his house and around it? Of course he does. But you know why you don't see any video of that on the media? Not even in Russian media? Because it didn't happen. That's a good. If it didn't happen, there is no video. Now, that doesn't mean if a tree falls in the forest and there's no video that it didn't fall, of course it fell. But in the case of a national leader of that prominence, it didn't happen. He's looking for an excuse to continue the war and destroy Ukraine, and there's that risk. And I hope it doesn't come to that. Certainly, as a matter of fact, some of the stocks I like can make the drones that can help deter the Russian aggression, and are already doing so, even if not discussed in terms of who makes what very much. So why do I mention that now to start off this discussion? Because when we look at 2025, it turns out to have been a very good year. Percentage-wise, it was actually one of my better years, I think for other people too, maybe for you, in a long time. But it didn't always feel that way, because the problem with the future is we don't know its history yet. and you can't write that. You can write what you think the history will be, which is called a projection, but that doesn't mean you will realize that projection. That's aspiration until it's actually realized. And so, gee, I think I woke up a little bit. But
yeah. And when the world is changing, when the tectonic plates of these geopolitical players are moving, there's opportunities also in the market, because you still also have the China-Taiwan situation. And some people are speculating that what just happened with Venezuela opens the door for China and Taiwan and Russia and Ukraine.
If you really want to have this discussion, I can, and I will tell you that's one of the first things that went through my mind. And I think you are absolutely correct. And you're spot on, Majid, because first of all, Venezuela equates to oil. Taiwan equates to semiconductors, period. If you want to bring the business, and that doesn't mean we don't have humanity and care for people. It means from an economic, and this is a stock market discussion, that's where the focus is. And semiconductors have a tremendous impact on everything at this point, so directly or indirectly. And it matters. What I think is that there's probably a realization that the United States hegemony is not going to prevail in parts of Asia, not Taiwan. We may try, but I don't know. And I think that, for example, the Philippines, South Vietnam, perhaps Indonesia and Malaysia, with Australia there, which is getting more powerful. We're going to be building submarines there, interestingly, with some of the software designed and controlled by BigBear. And you're not going to lose Asia. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I think the Chinese influence is going to prevail. South America isn't being lost to the United States. We're not at war with Venezuela. We really don't want to run Venezuela. Poor choice of words. What should have been said is we will assist administration until the duly elected authorities can take over and have a smooth. That's what should have been said. But Trump may often have the right policies written by Rubio, but that doesn't mean the articulation is as diplomatically correct as it ought to be. And they leave openings for opposition media to tear them apart when it doesn't deserve tearing apart. But as far as Asia, China wants to view that as their sphere of influence. The United States wants to view South America as our sphere of influence, and probably should, because even the Iranian regime, Hezbollah, others, Russians had certain footholds in parts of South America already. That needs to not develop into anything. And now it won't, period. China will continue to have influence in Asia, but the Chinese economy is somewhat slipping. And, everybody sees the EV cars doing well in China, and they are. But that doesn't mean that everything is doing well in China. And they still have the ghost housing that nobody talks about. So China has issues. China relies on exports and still needs us. So you're not going to have a war with China. I don't think that's a concern this year. I actually don't. Could they invade Taiwan? Yeah. But the interesting part would be whether even that doesn't provoke a war between the United States and China. A skirmish, maybe. So what happened yesterday sends messages all over the place, including Russia, because now maybe Putin will assume, wait a minute, no matter how I handle this, Russia is going to increase its influence over Eastern Europe, not all of Europe, whether the United States likes it or not. Putin thinks that's his sphere of influence. I don't think so, but he thinks so. and that's problematic. So you could argue it's too bad that Zelensky didn't try to attack Putin's residence and get him.
And there's so many things that are just happening in the geopolitical theater right now. And then you have at the start of the year, the first trading day in the stock market for 2026, the markets themselves, the bigger markets were kind of flat. And then you had a lot of these riskier high beta stocks. A lot of the stocks that you and I spend a lot of time looking at and talking about had a crazy good day. And some of those were defense. Some of those were related to military. So there's the whole like market piece of this. Then there's the geopolitical piece. Do you see, if you had to predict, we're recording this before futures are open on Sunday. Do you think this is going to have a positive, negative, neutral effect, all of this that's going on?
2025 turned out to be a very good year. Whether you made 20% on your money, 100%, 200%, or more for the year, it depended what you were in, like quantum computing stocks, for example, and how you disciplined yourself. And for me personally, I think, and maybe for you, and by the way, I liked your video the other day, and you pointed out the high beta stocks. Very good video.
Thank you.
But I thought that it was very important that one not panic when Jensen Huang gave us the opportunity of the anti-quantum rant that he did to buy those stocks cheaply, or in my case, and maybe yours, to add to positions that we had from late in 2024. And while everyone freaked out, I believe, I don't know if it was with you or with that, I can't remember, Will or somebody else, I may have said that I'm mad. I railed at Jensen being incorrect in my view of what he had to say. And at the same time, I said, I want to thank him because what he did was create an entry opportunity for the stocks. If you had the conviction in the stocks, and that's my point about last year, that may be the case this year. It depends. You don't know how it's going to end up, but you should be prepared that it won't be particularly smooth. And you have to remember the basic adage of getting more normally, unless there's some real cataclysm of a financial nature, you have to remember the adage of being optimistic when others are in absolute dire despair and panic, and pessimistic, or at least cautious, when there's excess euphoria. And that takes us to your discussion about the high beta stocks, which did very well, as you said, in a market that basically did nothing. And maybe that's reflecting of what a few people are noting and suggesting, which is basically a little bit hubris for we individuals, suggesting that the retail side of the ledger is having more influence on the market than the institutional side of the ledger. I don't know that I entirely agree with that, but I get the point that more Americans own stocks now than ever before. Did you see those statistics?
I haven't.
More Americans own stocks than real estate. And among all the industrial countries of the world, we're the only ones where more Americans have more of their wealth in, whether it's through funds, ETFs, or individual stocks, in equities than they do in their homes. And I'm not sure. That is actually a speculative warning of something down the road at some point. And I think it also is reflective of something else. The younger generation, which is you, generally believes that to achieve real wealth, they're not going to do it from income from a job. They might do it from an individual company if they own a successful business, but they're not going to get wealthy on wages. And they're going to do it by accumulating assets. In my case, in my whole life, I think I made more money in real estate than I did in stocks, with the possible exception of this past year.
So 2025 was good to you.
Yeah, no, seriously. I think my best percentage year, I was in my early to mid 20s, because I had an attitude that I had since a teenager, which was play what we didn't call them high beta stocks, but play the technology and speculative stocks of the era. And hey, that's what we did with quantum. Well, I did anyway. I bought 4 of them, and I considered them scratch off lottery tickets just over a year ago. And I hoped one would come in and the others didn't go broke and hurt me. Well, surprise, surprise, all 4 lottery tickets came in, and I got rid of 2. I cut back 1 to almost nothing, and I remain with one of them almost entirely, which happens to be D-Wave for the moment. And we'll see. But what I said to the younger people, and I say it now because fortunately or unfortunately, I guess it makes me feel relevant in my old age. There's a bunch of college kids and even high school that come up to me at the gym because they're following me on X or this video here because they saw the video with you that got tens of thousands of views. And I appreciate that. It makes me feel that I'm not just the old guy at the gym. So what it is they are of the view that the only way they're going to make any real money is trading stocks. And invariably they will say, are you down on crypto, on Bitcoin? And I will say, well, I think you should avoid it. And then a year ago, they would have said, what do you think of Bitcoin? They wanted to buy it. Now they don't want to. So now, does that mean we should buy it? I don't know. You might get a good rally because Trump and team are going to push for that. But generally speaking, it's the same reason that you and I both know which quantum company and when is going to crack the code, the encryption on Bitcoin. And when that happens, what's it worth? How about 0?
Right.
I don't know about 0, but I know that I had a guy ask me that a couple of days ago. And well, when it looks like that's going to happen, I can sell, right? I go wrong because if you know there's a problem on the horizon, people start trimming. I'll use one of our stocks as an example, the D-Wave warrants. The warrants started, I sold half my warrants at between 34 and 41. I think they got to 45 at the peak. And the other half, I knew I was going to tender for the common stock. So I nailed down some gain, and because my cost was like 90 cents, and the rest I let become common stock. And I had more options in D-Wave, which I also exercised, and those expired, would you believe, Friday, 2 days. And so now I've got more D-Wave. Am I selling it? Not at this time is the answer. And the point was that the warrants we knew were going to expire. You had to exchange them or they'd be worthless. So the warrants, not everybody was going to pay the extra $11 to get the common. So the warrants started going down in price days, if not a couple of weeks, before the final date, even as the common stock was still holding up. I think Bitcoin can do the same thing. It can go up for a while in fits and starts, and then it can roll over if people think this breaking of the encryption is coming, and it can do that well before the event occurs.
Yeah, and on the note of Bitcoin, I think what people underestimate or don't really take seriously is that Bitcoin is kind of, there's this unspoken trust aspect, right? That if you place money inside Bitcoin, then it's safe. So the second that becomes not the case, then I think you're going to have, and that could be even a news story of one wallet being hacked, then it's no longer a safe asset and people rush to the exits, right? As what I've seen is the Bitcoin community is a little bit fractured, a little bit fragmented over, we don't think that quantum is a threat to Bitcoin or old wallets. There's actually a lot of X users that have a big following that hold that opinion, and then there's others that are actually concerned about it. And so and what you have to do, and what Scott Aronson said in his, we had him on the show, and he's a notorious computer scientist that's been studying quantum computing for over 25 years. And he says that Bitcoin has to do a fork, but you have to get 51% of people to agree to fork Bitcoin. And it doesn't look like there's that agreement in the community. So that's why I can't really, I'm personally not super interested in Bitcoin because of that existential threat there.
I'm not interested either. And it goes to 100,000 people. You can say I'm wrong. I won't be wrong, because my decision is to simply avoid. And I acknowledge that it could go up during parts of this year. Absolutely acknowledge it. But I think it's risky. My concern with Bitcoin, and it's the only reason I would devote any time in this discussion, which as usual, I talk too much. The only reason I devote any time is my concern of how indirectly what we used to call, we talked about it, cross-asset liquidation can bother the stock market, because there's a lot of people that if you draw a legal pad and you put a line down the middle, stocks on this side, crypto on that side, there's a lot of people that own both, and they sometimes own both through the same brokerage firm if that broker allows it. And what you end up is that if the broker will sell you out, or you sell yourself out, even if it's a different firm, because you need money to meet a margin call. And as you have observed in the past, people have high margin on crypto. And so what can happen is, and we've seen this 3 times, Bitcoin takes a $3,000 drop, and 10 minutes later, the stock market's going down. And the horse is leading, the dog is leading the leash or something, because and many of the stocks that went down on days like that had nothing to do with anything going on with those companies, and everything to do with people selling not what they wanted to sell, but what they could sell to raise money to meet the obligation on the other side of the ledger.
There has been this unfortunate correlation with the performance of Bitcoin and the performance of high beta stocks. And that's especially shown itself since October as Bitcoin has gone down. So have all the high beta stocks. And I did want to return to that and get your opinion on this. But basically we've seen non-quantum and quantum and AI, eVTOL, we've seen tons of high beta stocks get absolutely hammered down 50%. Data center stocks, anything that was at its all-time high in October, 50% plus drawdown. And then to start the year in January of 2026, we see suddenly all these stocks are being bought up in huge days. I flashed it on the screen for a moment, but 10, 15, 20% to start the year in a single day. Why do you think that happened? And is there anything to it, or is it dead cat bounce, or funds rebalancing, or what's going on there?
In many cases, and it's not just data centers and so on, it's simply stocks that got crumbled. Tax loss selling is out of the way. Most of the people that are in those stocks are optimistic, so they're not necessarily going to sell. They don't have gains to take, so they're not going to sell in the beginning of the new year. So they're just sitting there with fingers crossed that they work out. So they become bag holders that are still holding as the exchange goes. So in some cases, there's a business and prospect reason to hold those stocks. And if you want me to single out, since you want me to talk about what I like for this year, I can single out a few, but they're not crypto.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm going to pull up the charts as well as you talk.
But I'll give you one great example: Redwire. I don't know if you talk about Redwire or not.
I think you've brought it up on the show before, but let me pull it up here.
It's probably more speculative, as a little bit more expensive of a stock. Nice chart setup.
Thanks.
Here we go. So here you look at Redwire. Okay, I put it in there at $8 a share. It went lower. It's a little higher. I've never owned Redwire before in my life. I own some stock and I own some options between 6 and 8. And here it is at 9. Okay, call it lateral behavior for the moment. But the point is, look where this stock was. And you have 1 year charts, and that's appropriate for us to look at now. You're talking at I'm moving my mouse, but the chart's not on my screen.
Yeah, so it looks like if I'm just looking, this was a $26 a share stock in early 2025. So what does Redwire do, and why is it sold off?
Well, I can tell you exactly. I've not delved that closely into it. They do a little thing like launching rockets.
Okay.
They're involved with the Artemis project, which is about to launch if it goes well next month. They have this huge world's largest solar array panel, which can have data center implications if that works out well, incidentally, although it's initially being used to power the Orion spacecraft to go to Mars, to go to the moon and eventually to Mars. But it could also power other things in space and so on. But I don't know anything about it. They also have a division that they bought during the year, which makes drones, but I don't know anything about it. And they also have a low Earth orbit satellite constellation system that they've launched and is likely to be managed by another company I don't know anything about called BigBear.ai.
I see.
For any who take things too literally, there was a slight cynicism in that, the last comment or two of mine. The CEO of Redwire happens to be the chairman of the board of BigBear.ai. Same guy.
Okay.
And they made some managerial mistakes. So what they have at Redwire is a very interesting vertical integration stack, if you will. And they've not horizontally integrated it too well yet, but that's where the coordination comes in. You can talk about managing satellites and controlling and launching the rockets. That's also where you could bring a BigBear in to sort of coordinate that data analytics, that sort of thing they do. Oh, there you are looking at some fundamentals. See, right there, you're looking at more than I've ever looked at. The revenue base is significant. Look at the revenue.
50% year over year. Looks like they've gotten themselves into more debt recently, but they had a big spike in assets.
Yeah, they made acquisitions.
Huh. So it's an interesting one. And I was marking out on the chart, but basically you had 75% drop, and then recently you've had a 70% rally from the $5 level.
Well, I don't care. 50%, 70%, 90%. What I care about is there is a bottoming formation, and you had a lot of these people probably taking their tax loss selling. That's why I brought it up as an example. And you had people that understand the prospects of the management, knowing where they screwed up last year, and knowing that they also made good acquisitions, and they have a lot of potential federal contracts, including out of the big, beautiful bill and space. And I'm not making it my focus stock or anything like that. I'm just pointing out an example of a turnaround situation. Let's call it that. And
I like it. I like the setup.
And I'm throwing the name out there. And if people are interested, let them go dig into it and do their own and figure out what this company does and what they think of it. What do I think of it? I have more call options than I do common shares, and they're already up.
When is the expiration?
At various times over the course of the year, not very short term. I'm giving them at least several months to put a quarter or two of numbers together. So that's one example. You want to go to the hot stocks? You want to go?
Yeah, sure. This is your picks for 2026. So I'm sure
you throw a chart on there that you know I'm probably in, and
I know what it is.
Yeah, sure.
You have to tell me.
You want you know which one is my pick of the year last year and for this year. And
is Ondas? Is it Ondas?
There's a distinct possibility in the bingo.
So were you buying Ondas at 88 cents?
78 cents.
Oh my gosh.
And $1.04 and $1.25 and $2 and $3 and $5. And I was all over it with calls right in here in the recent weeks.
So do you think it's going to
Tell me what
retest this high and then reject, or what do you think is going to happen from here?
Definitely going to not reject. It's already rejected in the nines 2 or 3 times in the past week, and people get bearish, and you see idiots, people suggesting it's going to go down to the rising bottoms pattern. And this is not what people say uptrend. It's a rising bottoms pattern. That's constructive. This was a high beneath a high. That's a warning. Then you drop down. You came up to that high. You don't normally come back up unless you're going to make another high. They leaned on it, tried to set it back, and then they take it up. This is going to take out the 1160 area, and it's going to go to 13 to 15 without a doubt. And probably on the next 1 or 2 announcements that Eric Brock, the very capable CEO, has planned. And by the way, I do not fault him at all. I don't remember. What was your question?
This was your pick for 2025, but you're saying it's also your pick for 2026?
No, BigBear.ai was my pick from $1 or something for 2025. And in August, I'm back here in the 2s. I said, I'm going to announce our 2026 pick of the year. I've never done this in all my years. I'm going to announce my pick of the year for next year in August, because by the time we get to the year end, I think the stock will already be double or more this price, try triple. And so I made it pick of the year for 26 way back in August and consistently stayed with that. And when it dropped, I go, this is ridiculous, buy more.
Right.
So, and I could be wrong, but I'm not. And here, this is a structural.
You need to get that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. You have a rising tops pattern. That will intersect at around 1150. It's also a double top. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of a struggle in here. You can make this a channel. There you go. Very good. You can make this a channel, and you will be rejected. I've used that word now. I got it from you, by the way.
I learned it from years of dating.
Okay. Well, as a single guy at 81 years old, I don't even want to go to that. But it might be. But I don't think Eric's going to let it be. And all it's going to, just remember that when Scott Duffy, who is our Secretary of the Department of Transportation, when he spoke, there were 3 drones in front of him and 1 person to the side, a lady. I don't know if you have that picture handy, but do you recall the event? Maybe not.
I don't, that one specifically.
Okay, there were two of the 3 drones were from Ondas, Iron Drone, not Iron Dome, Iron Drone. And one of the drones, I think, was from Dragonfly. They don't talk about Dragonfly much because it's Canadian, but it's also been sold to the U.S. Army. And the nonsense of not buying Canadian is silly, but it is, there if you want to think of that.
D-Wave was Canadian. Their headquarters are now in the U.S., but they work Canadian. And Xanadu is Canadian.
Yeah, their headquarters are in Palo Alto. And I think their biggest computer installations at USC in Los Angeles, but maybe not. But anyway, I don't think Canadian is a problem. So there's that.
You mentioned Big Bear. Is Big Bear still on your list for 2026?
Yeah. Let me say something about Ondas. Ondas is probably going to be involved in venue protection too. Iron Drone and Optimus is similar. Optimus is so far being used by the Dubai Police Department as patrolling. If people don't understand what it is, I'm not going to sit here and tell people what it does. They can go to the website and they can read about it. Because it can do a mission, go back, reload, go back. It can intercept suspicious drones by throwing a net on it. Then they parachute to ground. Police or army can inspect it, as the case may be. That's really their core product. But now they're in ground robotics. And if there's peace in Ukraine, They make people say, well, then they won't have demand. Just the opposite. They also have a ground robotics company they bought, which is against IEDs and anti-mining. And that's humanitarian. If you can go in, there's so many minefields in the world. Can you imagine the ability to clear those minefields without people risking their lives? I think that's a great thing. And they have the wireless rail network thing in the United States, which as soon as if Burlington Northern Santa Fe decides to use Ondas networks for their wireless communications, which is going to be required, and will they spin that off, or will the stock simply double overnight on that? I don't know. But
so what's your price target for Ondas for 2026?
30,
Okay.
50, 60, 20, 10.
Now you're making me feel bad for selling a few shares. Jeez.
Well, I know other people that are doing that, and there's somebody saying, "Well, I can write a call at 12 and I can get 50 cents or something," so I'll get it. That's like getting 13 for the stock. Okay, how are you going to feel when it's 23? You know, but is that going to happen? I don't know. I will say this, and then people will say, "Well, there's the insider selling because the CEO Brock sold, I don't know, what was it, $15 million of stock or something the other day." Not exactly. That was an exchange. Read the covenants. First of all, he takes a low salary, and I don't begrudge him if he did sell $15 million of stock. He's worked at this very hard, deserves it. And people say, well, he's moving to they're moving the headquarters to Palm Beach and changing the name to Ondas Inc. Changing the name, appropriate. Integrate the whole thing into what it is, which is an integrated defense company. And moving to Palm Beach, I think that he cashed out $15 million. And with the price of real estate in Florida, waterfront being what it is, I would not be surprised, Eric, if you're hearing this, if you buy a very nice home and a boat, and I hope you invite me for a boat ride because I've been a good supporter of your stock. And I'm the champagne.
Gotta send him this clip.
Okay. I think that it is true, as he said, that there's more technology now in the West Palm area. More of the finance has gone down to Miami, but Miami is complete chaos. And I think, and that, you know, who started that is Citadel. What's his name? Ken Griffin. And
Griffin invested a bunch into D-Wave. Did you know that?
Good for him, because he's going to need the profits from D-Wave to offset the loss if his house sinks with the high tides that are going to open Star Island where he bought his home.
What other stocks are you excited about for 2026?
Oh, Andis and whoever Andis affiliates with.
Did you see that Big Bear finished their Ask Sage acquisition?
I did, but why don't we follow who Ondas is sort of affiliated with briefly?
Oh, LightPath. Someone in the Discord actually brought up LightPath.
I don't know what's going on there. I've sold LightPath. I thought it was getting too high. It's higher, but I paid $1.59, and I made a point of telling my subscribers to the Inger letter that I did so from my car outside their office before I walked in for a meeting with the CEO. I essentially wanted them to know that I bought it and that I was time-stamping it, essentially. So it's not after the fact of me buying the stock. I paid $1.69, and then I sold some around $9, and it's 10 and change, and it's probably going to 12 or 14. What's going on? I don't know. I do know that because Ondas invested $4 million in LightPath, maybe they think that puts them at the front of the line to get the new modules, which are infrared, passive infrared, and cameras, because LightPath had bought a camera company, which is a very good acquisition. So which one are you going to look at? LightPath? See, look, that's another pattern, similar. Something's going on there. Oh, yes, I should slip in. Maybe it's going something more, because there was I'm told, I didn't see it personally, but a stockbroker subscriber of mine said there was a buy on Friday, which is the last session, first day of the new year, of 10,000 call options in LightPath. LightPath is traditionally a very light volume stock. It's not a big volume stock. 10,000 calls is a lot. It's probably a lot in any stock, and especially does somebody know something? I don't. How's that? I don't. But do you see? What are you looking at? Revenue?
Yeah, and it looks like maybe the database on ProfitViz is incomplete here for LightPath.
No, they don't make much money. It's a small company.
There's no way they made 15 billion though. That's just wrong data.
Talk about aspirational. You still have Bitcoin on the screen.
Yeah, Bitcoin's at 91,000.
I don't care.
The only reason I care is that it is an indicator for risk appetite in the market, which affects the stocks that I buy,
which we discussed. And okay, so here's LightPath. Just a warning: it can drop 30%. It can go up 30%. It happens quick. So I wonder what the person who put 10,000 calls, and I don't know when they expire, what in the hell are they looking for? Does somebody know something? I don't, but I would guess I'm not the only one who's aware of that transaction.
Before we started recording, Gene, you had mentioned a lot of these stocks have already moved a lot, so you're not buying early in some of these, and that's always like a point for extra caution. If they've already moved so much, then you have to be extra cautious about the risk of downside.
My cost is below this chart. I had been in LightPath and out of LightPath. I got in LightPath and I got out of LightPath. I got in LightPath and I have a whole bunch of call options myself, not 10,000.
Yeah.
And I couldn't handle that. And I don't know. I'll do something.
UMAC is the next one that Gene would like to show. Are you thinking this is a good one for 2026?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll wait till you have a chart of it to show folks. Again, I'm in there cheap. Everybody had to focus on Google, NVIDIA, and so on. I was focused on, those are expensive. They may go higher. We've had that discussion before.
Mm-hmm.
They may go higher, but the percentage-wise, the money's been made. Even D-Wave, the percentages are not, I'm in there from $2. I don't think I'm going to get a 10 or 15x move. And again, in your lifetime, maybe. In my lifetime, probably not. We discussed that before. And you said, well, maybe it'll be 500 someday. Well, maybe it will be, but I'm afraid I won't be. We need to find the company that makes the preservatives that are going to keep me going long for $500 a share on something like that. As far as UMAC, to go back to the point directly, this is a stock that it was never a $3 stock, but I like buying the tech stocks before. This past year, AMD, which was my pick of the year in 2018 or 19, and I met them in Berlin, the Ryzen chip manufacturer. These days, no one remembers Ryzen. You probably do because you're in the business. And I met the product developer at the IFA in Berlin. And you would enjoy that show, by the way. And the stock was 32. And I said, if it falls in half, I'll buy it. If it fell in half, I bought it. We still have some. It's $240 or something. It may go to 300, but I don't want to buy AMD now. Let the big institutions do that. I've made my money in AMD, and that's that. So here we are with Unusual Machines. This is the one that's controversial because Trump's son, I think it's Donald Jr., is on the board of directors and owns some shares. So is there pay? I don't want to discuss corruption, not corruption, relationships, not. Everybody knows what's going on in the crowd in Washington. And you can do the same thing with the Democrats if you want and people talk about wanting Nancy Pelosi's trading list, you know, why am I even bringing that up? I shouldn't. So, you know, what are we looking at now?
This is the whole history of the stock and weekly candles.
Okay. This is a small company that is located like 5 minutes from me. And I've not been there, and I've not met Alan Evans, who is the CEO. He's very optimistic. He's very casual. I think too casual about it, but he's confident. So, and he says it's going to be a big company, and he says they're going to have a great year. And he says their acquisition of a company in Australia is going to do well. And oh, there you go. A privately held, they're not public yet, Alabama-based Huntsville, which is where the Redstone Arsenal is, U.S. Space Force is located there, and they make drones as a private company. And guess who has invested money in them? Ondas. PDW. Think in terms of domestic production for Ondas by PDW. And then you've got an order from PDW for Unusual Machines. What does Unusual Machines primarily make? High-speed wound, small electric motors. What do nobody in the United States, maybe one other company, make? High-speed electric motors for drones. Where do they come from usually? China. What is prohibited? China. Where does this stock go? I don't know. Again, I'll say the same thing. 15? Sure. 20? Maybe. 30? 40? I quit. I don't know. But am I selling? No. Am I holding? Yes. Do I hold options that have not yet expired? Yes. Do I hold common? Yes.
So that's 2 drone stocks and 1 drone related stock. So you're very, very much thinking 2026 will be drone.
Well, let's continue the list. There's another one that I think might be being used by, have something to do with LightPath and or Ondas, which is Kopin, KOPN.
I think I've heard this one time, maybe the ticker symbol.
Hey, just because I introduce it doesn't mean you need to run out and buy it.
Of course, yes.
It worked out with Veritone and with Ondas, and I'm happy for you, and I'm happy for me. So here's another one. This is yet to make this kind of a pattern, but this is a basing formation, and this is obviously distribution, but it was a $4 stock. I don't think it's ever been an expensive stock, but they transformed the company. If you look at what they're working on, they bought something. I think it's there've been so many companies buying other smaller companies, even in Australia and New Zealand, that I just don't remember it all. This one makes micro LED. Well, you're looking at, here you go. First person view goggles. Now you can talk Oculus, or you can talk, which is, by the way, Veritone. That's where his money came from. Or you can talk controlling drones, or you can talk heads-up displays in helmets in fighter jets. So I guess what you're looking at right now, I think is self-explanatory of what I'm trying to convey.
Yeah. Interesting. So they are they a new company or?
No, they've been around for years. Pennsylvania, 100% USA. Kopin, I know nothing about. And Mr. Kopin decided to transform the company and move into the newer products. And I think my suspicion, is all I can say, is that Ondas and even LightPath may be his customers. And he sees the opening into the drone industry. And nothing has to be exclusive. There's Dragonfly. And if you don't have the charts to show, we don't need to look at them. If the charts are working, we can. Yes, my focus in 2 words for 2026 is global defense. And
Gotcha.
if you other 2 words, aviation, and 3 words, aviation, border security. And what are you looking at? Oh, great.
This is Dragonfly?
doing nothing yet. They have gone to the well, and people know that frequently, and they have diluted the stocks. Now, will they change that approach, and will they leave well enough alone and just develop business? I don't know. They've had a couple small contracts with the U.S. Army directly on a battalion level in Germany, and they are primarily an agricultural drone company that's been around for years. And do I think it's going back to 14? Sure. Doesn't mean it will, but if they don't, but again, I'm not the company. I'm just an observer, and you're not the company. And it just depends on whether these guys make mistakes. Redwire is going to go up because they've acknowledged they made mistakes, and they have a lot of business, a lot of revenue. And so now they're trying to do things intelligently and without a lot of hubris. He's looking at these products. Very good. See, this is more than I've done. Thank you for educating me. The stock.
So Gene, I have a question. So
Sure.
Do you know of a company called UAVs?
UAVS, which is used to be AgEagle. People still say that. They changed the name. It is now called Eagle Next. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah. So this company had a 50% day on. They got a U.S. Army contract, and this is one of the drone stocks that I actually have in my portfolio, and I saw 50% red on it, and then it had a big up day on Friday.
Did you know I was buying it as well?
I didn't know that.
I have a half sister in Wichita, Kansas, which is where they're located, which is where I grew up. And I asked her if she knew it, because she was paralegal and used to be in state government and worked with my best buddy who became a United States congressman. Long story. And in any event, nope, they don't know the company. I know we're
fascinating,
because I knew the guys who started Pizza Hut, and they're also from Wichita.
So what draws you so much to the drone? Because I know we've talked about a bunch of different drone stocks and drone related stocks. Do you see it as a big growth sector in the next couple of years?
Oh my God. I don't think they can keep up with demand.
Okay.
Alan Evans has said that from Unusual Machines. Eric Brock of Ondas, they raised their targets to 35 million, I think. And then he said, we may eventually do 100 million. And then he quietly says, and I'm being conservative. We can't keep up. That's why I think they're going to do something with PDW. They have a contract with something called Detroit Manufacturing, which is an all DEI, all woman-owned manufacturing of auto parts company. And who knows how. And for example, Unusual Machines just leased another 20-some thousand square feet of space, again, near me in an industrial area. And if you're in Orlando, you guys know the area. It's not far from Millennium Mall and right across the road from Toyota of Orlando. But I know where they are. I haven't been there. I don't think they need the extra 20,000 square feet for drone motor winding. I would not be surprised whether LightPath, which said they're expanding, then they already did expand. So were they going to expand more? And they're out by Research Park by University of Central Florida. So what is Unusual Machines doing with that space? I think they've said they're going to make goggles there too.
What about RedCat? That's another one I have.
I don't follow it because everybody else.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I don't. I mean, I know of it. I know it's
been a very volatile stock. A lot of these drone stocks are pretty volatile, with the exception of maybe Ondas, which just seems to only go up and to the right.
That's not true. Ondas had a big shakeout.
Yeah, it did have a shakeout with all the other beta stocks, but RedCat, you can kind of see in the chart, it was a $2 stock in 2024 and jumped to 15, then plummeted to 4, then back up to 16. You see, the swings are pretty crazy.
Well, the chart would say, and the decline was on lighter volume. So contracting volume and decline is normally bullish. And absorption of supply towards the end of the year, it probably pops 10. And a reasonable target would be 12 near short to intermediate term, just off the chart, knowing nothing about the company. I'm not going to. Drones. You asked me about UAVS, the Wichita company. Do you have that on? Did we look at the chart of that?
We did, yeah. That's a dollar stock right now.
When's it going to be a $3 stock?
I actually think this one's pretty interesting because after that U.S. Army contract, it jumped right up into this from like 85 cents to $1.24. But it spent a lot of time in the summer, in the fall, in this $2 to $3 range, kind of in there. So I think it'll probably hurry up and get back right into that range. But who knows? It was at one point a $10 stock. So this one is,
what? Oh,
there's probably stock splits and that type of thing.
No, not splits, dilution.
Yeah.
The shelf offerings, raising money, companies using this. See, that's what biotechs. That's why I'm not playing biotechs anymore. I've made money a couple, but lost in more because it's usually a bunch of doctors and maybe something gets approved someday. And meanwhile, they're draining money out of the company, using it like a personal ATM machine. I don't mean at the market offering. I mean automatic teller machine.
Yeah.
Do I think this stock will go up? I think it's a reasonable bet. This is in the category of lottery ticket, like I did with Quantum a year ago. Except my other, I have a spread of drone stocks, but some of them have already moved up enough to where they're not simply lottery tickets. Is that fair to say? It's an interesting year. And as far as drones, we can't meet the demand. Do you know how many drones China produces in one week?
No.
I don't either. I think Russia makes like 50,000 a week. You know how many I think the United States made last year? 3,000 total by all companies in the United States.
Let's end with your thoughts on the Big Bear.
Oh, that's my enigma stock. And people say, "Oh, Gene, you've been in it forever. When is it going to go up?" And I go, "Well, forever. I own the stock at $1.25, at $1.50, at $1.80, and I sold it. I've sold it twice. I sold it at 7 or 8, and then it came down to like under 3, and I bought it again, and I sold it again too soon, and I think 6 or 7, and it made it to 8 and change, and then I bought it back at 5, and I still hold it. And I sold nothing at 9, and when it was back down here in the 5s, I've increased my leverage. This is a company that I accused, going way back to the left of your charts and before, I accused of financial engineering with AE Industrials because of the way they played their financing game. You know who their big investor was? AE had 2 investment funds in the old one, and they may be out by now. That's why you had selling in the stock too. There was a company that encountered their own challenges, which they're now overcoming. You may have heard of them, Boeing Aircraft. They're not too far from where you are. And Boeing was the big, it's an aeronautical fund. Everything they do is space, tech, and aeronautics and data. And Pangiam, when I mentioned, and I'm sorry that I get disjointed, this is me at this point in my life. When I talked about the 2 drones from Ondas in front of Scott Duffy, the transportation secretary, and I mentioned there was a lady to his right. The lady to his right is a lady named because I think she's part Vietnamese, Pa McNeil. You know her job currently? She's the director of TSA. Oh, so now you have drones over here, Ondas, and you have Big Bear, which was my pick of the year a year ago, 425, and remains a hold. They're waiting for a TSA contract. Everybody, including somebody else on YouTube, Will is often mentioning that he goes through airports and he sees Big Bear. Well, everybody sees it. I saw it a year ago when I came back from London. Heathrow and Orlando Custom and Border had it. But those were pilot projects, the 17 airports. The rumor is they're going to roll it out to over 200 airports in the United States. What they're getting paid per airport or for data storage, I have no idea. I also know Big Bear has a deal with a company, I think in Georgia, that makes the CT scanners that your luggage goes through and hand-carried baggage when you go through the security check line. So that's sort of interesting itself. So what is this stock going to do? Okay, you're looking at Big Bear. What are they doing?
After market on Friday, they announced a move to reduce debt, which I always like to see, and issued a notice to holders of the company's 6% convertible senior secured notes due 2029, calling for redemption of all outstanding notes.
Yeah, they're retiring the debt. That's all that needed to be known. They will have 17 million of debt instead of 180 million of debt,
which is a pretty big deal, right? When you think about the picture for the company. You and I have been in Big Bear since late 2024. So the revenue's been pretty flat for years. If they're changing the calculus here as far as the cash and equivalents and debt, which it looks like they're going to be almost no debt soon.
It's even more interesting because they just closed the acquisition of Ask Sage, which is voice generative AI for military and federal agencies only.
Wow. Yeah, we saw that news on Friday too, right? So they had announced it, but then they've completed, and this is a $250 million acquisition.
They have 800 million cash total. They retired the debt. They closed this deal for cash. I was shocked that I had a clarification from their management to me, which means I guess they're reading my stuff somewhere. And because I got an email to remind me that the Ask Sage deal was done entirely for cash, not stock. Why? Because I had apparently either incorrectly or they weren't able to thought because they had this vote, as you probably know, to increase the authorized shares from 500 million to 1 billion common shares. That vote has been rejected, to use your favorite word, rejected. Rejected 3 times. Isn't 3 times a charm? Maybe it is. Now they've scheduled a 4th meeting at the end of January. Okay, fine. We'll see what happens. I understand increasing authorized shares. The idiots, the folks on the chat boards have generally, so many of them understand this correctly and have corrected the ones that don't. Many have assumed it means dilution. No, it's not an offering. It's not a shelf. It simply means authorized shares. If you're using, and then it depends what they do with the shares. If it's to pay themselves, that's different. If it's using it for growth, acquisition, and expansion, that can be constructive because just like buying Ask Sage, that becomes accretive. And then you have people saying, well, they paid 10 times, 250 million, and it's going to add 25 million in revenue. Well, that's for 2025 already. If I buy an apartment building and I get a cash on cash return of 10% a year, I'm generally happy with that. 8 years would be even better than 10. And I've done that. But the point here is, who says they're not going to grow Ask Sage? Who says Ask Sage won't make 35 or 45 $1 million next year or the year after? Their whole team is coming for a reason to Big Bear because they believe as part of a bigger pie, maybe those guys can make more money, not just the same money. Why are they doing this? And not just because they get some cash out.
So do you think that the next quarterly is going to be different for Big Bear? Is it going to be very
good prospect. Also, when I mentioned the financial engineering, that's the prior management. They brought Kevin McAleenan in as CEO, as president the previous year, and then as CEO this year, 2025. And don't forget, he's the guy, everyone said, well, he was head of Customs and Border Protection. That's correct. Ha McNeil worked for him. She's now head of TSA. She was personally, I believe, was one of the head designers of Pangiam, which is that aviation airline security screening system. So, gee, what are the chances that they'll get a good piece of the contract for aviation security? I think pretty damn good. That's no guarantee. Again, your risk is entirely your own, but that's what I'm betting on. And I have a sizable position, full disclosure, in Big Bear and Big Bear warrants, which I'll gradually retire because those run out at the end of the year, and gradually more and more in the common stock. And as options expire, I exercise them. But the point with the financial engineering is that was prior management. He's cleaned it up. They're cleaning up the balance sheet. They're cleaning up a lot of stuff. And people go, oh, it's going to go back to this. Well, why would it go back? That's a great example of it's not the same company it was when it was $1.50 a share. I may own it from that. Ondas is not the same company it was when I paid 78 cents a share, or you paid whatever. And there's another stock you haven't mentioned that you might want to actually wrap this up on. Veritone, which you have correctly assessed in your last video. And since I assume everybody watches all your videos, I won't talk about it. You can talk about it if you would like. You know it better than I do. So I will be happy if it doubles or triples. And you see, and while the media can debate buying all the conservative stocks, and they can debate whether we get 4 years of a bull market, it doesn't matter as long as you do. I'll be happy if the market itself is neutral. I don't need a big roaring bull market. I just don't need something that crashes so severely that it cripples the interests of the American people in trading these stocks, especially if it's true that the retail public owns more than the institutions. I don't know about that little detail, and I'm often happy to see institutional increase in buying, which they've been doing in Ondas, in Big Bear, and even Redwire. And Veritone, I don't know what institutions are doing in it.
Just looking at the chart setup and everything with Veritone, I think it's very attractive, especially with some price targets on the street as high as $26 a share.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be thrilled for half of that.
Me too. So Gene, as always, this was a pleasure. We learned a ton about different drone stocks. We learned more about BigBear.ai and sort of the geopolitical tensions that are happening in the world right now. So very nice to have you. Where can people find you if they'd like to get connected with you?
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be with you. You are the admiral of the stock market fleet.
And so Gene, people can find you there on Inger Letter and Stockseer on X. I'm going to put that on the screen.
Hey, go to ingerletter.com. They can see a sample. Please don't bother me with a cheap trial offer because I may take those off my website. I already took MarketCast off my website because I'm free on X, and I hope that health willing, I will do this another year. And maybe I should share with you, I don't know if I should. I had dinner last evening with a personal friend who happens to be a physician. He's not my doctor. He's a personal friend. He is an MD, Mount Sinai residency. And he says that he thinks that I should disengage and relax. And I think this is how I relax. So, God willing, a year from now, we can talk about 2027 picks, and we can debate whether or not Big Bear has actually become the new Palantir, and whether Ondas is the new Anduril, and Anduril is making overly priced products. But I don't know. Let's see what the future brings.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Pleasure to have you, Gene, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.